Welcome to another Packaging Europe podcast. I'm Tim Sykes, and today we're discussing a subject close to my heart, the landmark value chain collaboration working on applying digital watermarks to packaging in order to enable advanced sorting of waste. Talking, of course, about HolyGrail. So I've watched this platform evolve through its phases from technology investigation, HolyGrail 1.0, to the various stages of HolyGrail 2.0, validation, industrial testing, and really bringing it up to scale. And in the process, I've grown more and more impressed by the possibilities of digital watermarking in adding value to the circular economy. I also have come to see HolyGrail as one of the really outstanding examples of pre-competitive value chain collaboration. It's done such a fantastic job in bringing together brand owners, retailers, packaging converters, sorting machinery manufacturers, MRFs, recyclers, and even EPR organizations to address this opportunity collectively. So as HolyGrail 2.0 reaches its culmination, I think now is a great time to review the project and, more importantly, consider what comes next. So we're very fortunate today to be joined by three people who've been intimately involved in HolyGrail 2.0, and I'd like to introduce them. Firstly, we have Margherita Trombetti, who is Project Manager and Policy Officer for Sustainability at AIM, the European Brands Association, which has been managing HolyGrail 2.0. Welcome, Margherita.
Thank you, Tim. I'm excited to be here with you today.
Thank you. And we have two representatives of brand owners who've been very active in HolyGrail. Firstly, we have Grane Maaløe, Sustainable Packaging Lead Specialist at Arla Foods. Hi, Grane.
Hi, Tim. Very pleased to be here.
Very pleased you're with us. And secondly, and last but not least, Richard Akkermans, European R&D Packaging Sustainability Manager at Mondelēz. Hi, Richard.
Hi, Tim. Hi, everyone. Looking forward to a good discussion today.
Likewise. So let's start by reviewing that HolyGrail journey to date. I'd like to start with our two brand owners and to ask you about the initial purpose of why did you and your organizations get involved in HolyGrail? Let's start with Richard.
Thanks, Tim. Well, ultimately, the circularity of food contact plastic packaging, it's fair to say, is lagging behind many other packaging types. We know how plastic is being demonized, but it's easy to blur the lines there. And it's clear that more needs to be done to make these plastic packaging materials circular. So the prospect of being able to do that through intelligent sorting, with digital watermarks being the most advanced way of doing that currently, I know other technologies are evolving as well, is something that clearly felt like the right thing to get involved with, because we've got a vested interest in making sure that more of these packaging materials are being circulated, ideally all the way back to food contact recycled plastic packaging, and that true circularity, as opposed to just downcycling and using plastic for other recycled applications.
Thank you. And how do you see that picture, Grane?
Well, I very much agree with Richard about the plastic problem that we all need to solve. At Arla Foods, we also have our packaging strategy asking us or demanding us to reduce our use of virgin fossil plastic. And of course, we can reduce the plastic per pack, and we've always done that. We'll proceed doing that. But when seeking out new sources of plastic that we need to have, we can either go bioplastic or recycled plastic. And we see the most environmental optimal solution in going in the recycling way to save resources and to keep plastic from being waste and keep it as a resource. And that's where we see HolyGrail being an enabler. This digital watermark based sorting, intelligent sorting can give us back our packaging from the waste market and into circular recycling, and getting at some point food contact approval.
Great. And when you joined HolyGrail and started to grapple with the requirements, were there any particular initial concerns or barriers that your organizations had to deal with? Grane, can you go first?
Yes. I think there was. I think we can say there was very enthusiastic from the beginning, because I had been speculating about this problem with getting our packaging back into recycling. So I had the door open. But introducing something new in an organization where everyone is measured on their efficiency or their sales numbers, people get concerned about me coming with something invisible and with an invisible function. So marketing was concerned about, is it really invisible? Will it have an impact on our brands on shelf? And can we talk about putting invisible functions into people's food packaging? That was one concern, which we had to, of course, show them by examples. And even our production managers, which is very much focused on minimizing downtime and run a high efficiency, they were also concerned about what will these invisible coats do to optical sensors in production. Will it disturb them? What will happen when we put this into our production? So we had to make a lot of pre-testing before taking the decision to put any coating on any real full-scale packaging.
And
so, yes.
did those technical concerns turn out to be misguided, or there weren't issues, or was it a case of having to make adjustments in order to make it work?
Well, we work with both 2D and 3D enhanced packaging. So 2D is just in the print, and there was absolutely no concerns about having the codes in the print. When it comes to embossment, we met some concerns about the roughness of the surface that changed a bit, and we had to adjust some of our vacuum suction heads in the production, but we overcame that quite easily.
Okay, great. And Richard, did you at Mondelēz encounter any kinds of initial issues?
Yeah, it's funny listening to Grane, because very ditto on pretty much all of the issues. So first of all, these watermarks won't impact anything running in the plant, running through manufacturing, unless, as Grane says, there's a physical difference because of a 3D surface effect on some rigid plastic. Again, very easy to mitigate. The graphics conversation was obviously not all 2D graphics are equal. It's a lot easier to hide watermarks in something that's got a lot of color variation. A block color or a block white packaging material is obviously a bit harder to hide a digital watermark in. But we found, working with print providers and with Digimarc, there was always a solution. And very rarely did you have to compromise on the detectability of the watermark to really hide it. There were a couple of exclusion zones on a couple of graphics where we said, right, well, we just want watermark in that particular white part of the brand logo to make sure it's got the maximum brand standout. But again, once people understand it and really got into it, people develop a bit of a can-do attitude of it's relatively easy to hide these watermarks. And the acid test was, of course, you would then give the printed packaging to the relevant marketeers without the prior example and say, here's the new packaging, and they would sign it off. Only when you really got into the scrutinizing the detail versus the previous packaging, occasionally you could just see a bit of the watermark in parts of the graphics. But again, consumers will never have that side-by-side comparison. So again, not an issue really in the grand scheme of things. The bigger issue, I think, is the usual kind of business skepticism about, okay, so we have to invest a bit, do we, in these digital watermarks? So we have to obviously reprint our packaging, and we have to pay a license for these watermarks. Well, what's the payback model on that license? So the most difficult thing was to be able to try and paint a picture of the future downstream extra value of intelligently sorted packaging materials and how that will eventually unlock circularity and recycled plastic to meet regulatory requirements. So we'll come back to that later on, I'm sure. But that upfront, okay, we have to pay a license fee. What do we get for that? That was probably the biggest single barrier to get people to buy into the project in the first place. And it's taken considerable work there to say, okay, it's literally a small price to pay to maximise the chances of it being downstream sorted, collected, sorted, and then potentially recycled. And that, I'm sure, is still the biggest single barrier for other brand owners and retailers joining the project today.
Yes, yeah, that's been my impression as well. And maybe we can use that to move on to this question of how the progress of the project has looked, and what has the process of scaling up HolyGrail 2.0 looked like. So clearly, Richard talked about the investment being maybe one of the ongoing barriers in on more partners and accelerating the progress of ever more large scale industrial tests. Can you talk a little bit more about how we've moved forward in that way?
Well, maybe I could chip in about the concerns about the investment, because since we started, the situation has changed. We now have a packaging waste directive demanding us to have 10% of recycled plastic material in our packaging from 2030, actually making this ability to claim your packaging back a right to operate in the market.
If I may chip in, just as you both highlighted, like sort is really one of the enablers for the industry to really meet this new packaging and packaging waste regulation targets, which are mandatory. And I'm referring to recycling and recycled content in plastic packaging more specifically. And that's, I mean, back then when we started, we didn't know anything about these requirements. They became a reality afterwards and most recently. But when we started back in 2020, and I can see how really a journey it has been, because it was the brand owners who were leading, who came to AIM and asked if we could continue this HolyGrail 1.0 that was originally launched by and facilitated by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, to continue into 2.0, which we are now about to close, to really prove the capability, the technical capabilities of the digital watermarking technology. And back then we thought, okay, just a couple of years, we go all the way to TRL 9, so technology readiness level 9, which is the highest. But then we soon realized that such a change in the industry and in the way we do things doesn't happen overnight. And this is one of the key learnings, absolutely, that we got from the initiative. And this is even more important when we want to think and we want to go towards a scale up. The time that we need is way longer than we think, but what's really moving this initiative, and which I think is the beauty of it, is that it's cross value chain collaboration. So we do not only have great pioneer brand owners, but also retailers and all the others that you were mentioning, Tim, at the beginning, all the way through the packaging value chain to sorting and recycling. So that's what really moves the project itself. And we are indeed looking forward to seeing how we can take that even further.
So, Margherita, what does it mean for the project as a whole, and in terms of practical readiness to go forward, reaching this stage of TRL 9?
Well, this is a good question, because it means that we have been able to prove that the technology works for detection, sorting, efficiency across various packaging types and formats. We have announced in August last year that we have managed to do so for flexible packaging on PP and PE flexibles. And we are going to soon also make the announcement about the successful validation for other materials, specifically rigid packaging from real post-consumer waste. packaging waste, which is indeed crucial, because now we know that we have proven intelligent sorting through digital watermarks. And we can, so we have more reassurance with respect to when we started that this technology actually works, and we are a step closer to closing the loop on packaging.
And there's a natural segue there, Margherita, in what you've said in terms of, okay, there are other ways to intelligently sort, right? So we know that there are other companies that are getting close to being able to really sort rigid polypropylene packaging, for example. There's great work going on in the UK, not far from where I live in Warwick, here in the UK. The key at the minute is certainly when it comes to flexibles, digital watermarking technology is the only one proven at TRL 9. But even for rigids, the object recognition and sort of AI type processing effectively is just getting very good at guessing whether something is food contact or not. And the difference between a digital watermark, where you've got a positive confirmation linked to a digital passport that material was food contact. Yes, of course, you can't guarantee post-consumer disposal that it hasn't been mixed or come into some contaminant. But in terms of managing the risk of food safety, it's definitely a benefit to be able to say, yeah, this material is positively recognized as a food contact packaging material. The best object recognition in AIs would just be looking at a database saying, we think it matches that particular brand color, and that type of packaging shape is typically associated with food. Therefore, it's likely to be food contact. Now, over time, of course, and especially if the technologies could be used synergistically, and again, we'll come on to that as a potential opportunity. You do need to train up potentially object recognition to say, no, this is food contact or non-food contact. NIR will already detect what type of plastic, what type of polymer it is. So really the key bit of intelligent sorting now is that extra loaded information, and digital watermarks will assure it because it's linked via a digital passport, whereas object recognition, of course, is effectively high accuracy estimation of that type of information. And of course, over time, they'll blur into one and the same thing. But that's how it's fascinating how all of these intelligent sorting technologies will eventually play out in the marketplace, I think.
Thanks, Richard. So coming into the present then, I'd be interested to hear from Mondelēz and Arla Foods about what you've done. You've talked about the journey and the motivation, but what have your two companies done in terms of incorporating the digital watermarks in packaging, and what does that mean in terms of supporting the progress of this platform? Let's start with Grane.
Yes, we've been in the HolyGrail 2.0 from the beginning, and in the initial phase, we enhanced some different packs for the first trials that were happening in Copenhagen, just to demonstrate that the technology actually was functioning in a baby scale. Since then, we have, with the help from Pacor, we have enhanced one of the tools that are producing our cream cheese brand Buco. So we have enhanced the tool with 3D coding, both on the outside and inside of a lid. And this tool is running 50 million lids into the German market on various Buco tastes and variants, but it's the same coming from the same mold. And what we've seen is that we can have all our lids back if they enter into the plant with a scanner based on or camera based on digital watermarks. We had that demonstrated here in month of December, and I will have bales of these lids coming back to Denmark for further investigations and decontamination. So I think that's our story with Digimark so far, and we are ready to take the next step, invest and join the HolyGrail 2030, because we believe we need to get control with our waste chain, supply chain, you could call it, because it goes from waste to supply in a few years.
Great. And Richard, how about Mondelēz?
Yeah, similarly, been quite excited on the journey, really, of seeing the 3D watermarks. I think are particularly cool because it's almost like kind of braille on your plastic, an actual texture that encodes digital information, which still blows my mind, to be fair. So we've done that on chocolate box trays under the Milka brand. And then we cut our teeth on flexibles with brands like Milka and Lou and Prince biscuits. And so a variety of brand colours and different shapes and sizes of packaging. And again, high detection rates across the board, which is really pleasing because you never quite know. You can do all of the desk work, but until actually it's been through the real life post-consumer disposal chain and got to a sorting centre, and then to find out that the watermark's still working, detectable and then sortable. It's a really exciting sort of groundbreaking point we've got to, really. But for me, I mean, it's the next part of the conversation that excites me the most as we talk about almost working back from 2030 and the packaging and packaging waste regulation. Grane's already mentioned it. We've got an awful lot to do to be compliant with that legislation when it comes to recycled plastic content in the food industry. That's where the conversation goes next, I'm sure.
Okay, great. Before we go to that, I'd like to go back to Margherita and just put a bit more detail on what we've talked about in terms of, we've spoken in maybe more abstract terms about what digital watermarking can do, how it works, and the potential. But I understand that results from the latest and the largest sort of data sample and the most useful data to date are now being processed. And maybe you can give us a snapshot, Margherita, of what we know now about the sorting efficiency and the kinds of conclusions that we can draw about the impact that we can expect digital watermarking at scale to have.
With pleasure. Still, when I'm reading this, let's say this report that we are going to share soon, the results thereof, I can really see like how well this technology works. And but let me tell you, before going into the numbers, that what we have achieved here was also like, we operated in a MRF located in the Cologne area in Germany. And it's a dirty MRF. So the conditions in which we operated were not the best conditions, and this like further highlights how great the results that we have achieved are. And let me also credit all of the companies, the brand owners like Arla and Mondelēz, but also others that participated and made this whole possible. When it comes to sorting efficiency, to go back to your question, we could really see, like, without disclosing too much, so you can stay tuned and even get all of the details around it. Like, the sorting efficiency was great. There were over 5.6 million items detected across nearly 6,000 SKUs. And what we achieved was around a sorting efficiency of around 90% over long durations of time, because let us also remind ourselves that these tests took place over a longer period of time than what we have done in the past. So over more than 3 months, or 100 days, more or less, using detection analysis, strong detection analysis. And next to it, there is also some purity rates that our technical team was able to calculate. And these are also impressive results. considering that we only ran a single pass sorting, whereas in normal conditions, you normally run even two passes. So that's great. And what we have achieved, essentially, it all boils down to saying, okay, yes, as I was mentioning previously, we are ready to move towards at scale because the technology works from a technical standpoint. So now it's just a matter of proving the economics around it.
Okay, great. And I think that brings us to the final sort of topic of this discussion, which is looking into the future and where we see the next steps for HolyGrail. As Richard and Grane have already alluded to, 2030 is looming large. It's really very close, frighteningly close to us now. And HolyGrail 2030 is going to be the next iteration of this project. A question to all three of you. Where do you see the next important benchmarks and necessities for HolyGrail? Let's go to Grane first.
Yes, so I really think that we now have the chance in this 2030 project to show that the MRFs can get a higher value out of the sorted goods, because it's a cleaner stream. They will be able to sell clean, high quality plastic to the market, and to prove that would be a victory for the project, I think, because then. I think good business will just spread like rings in the water. On the other hand, we also have the brand owners who is investing in new designs and this new functionality and coding, and we also somehow need to have an kind of arrangement so that we can get our materials back and that they're not just sold to the highest bidder. So I'm looking forward to have some kind of supply and get back system drawn, and to see that the MRFs actually are able to make a better bottom line on the business. And the next big thing will be to prove that we can actually reach migration numbers on decontaminated packaging, post-consumer packaging coming out of this sorting. Richard, how do you see the future?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. I mean, it's the food contact of the sensitivity, contact sensitive, making sure that recycled plastic is safe in contact sensitive and food packaging applications. That's absolutely critical here. So I've been pushing hard in Mondelēz to try and start the process of incorporating recycled plastic into flexible polypropylene packaging in our case. And at the moment, the only way to do that today is through advanced or chemical recycling. And that's a really, really important technology. The irony there is, if you use that sort of technology, you effectively process plastic waste all the way back to oil, to naphtha, and start the plastic making process again, which is how you get virgin quality. It's great in terms of you can repeat that process forever, but it's a long loop recycling, and it's quite energy intensive. And currently, until the energy grid is entirely decarbonized, obviously energy intensive processes, you run the risk of LCA and greenhouse gas increased emissions. Now, obviously, the advanced chemical recyclers know they need to mitigate that risk and build on green energy. But at the moment, A, there's not enough of this advanced recycling anyway, and B, it's a relatively, as I say, long loop kind of crude tool to get back to food contact. Now, equally, some plastics today, I mean, obviously we know with PET rigid bottles, in the drinks industry, there are ways to get sort of closed loop, tighter loop control and do mechanical recycling, de-inking, decontamination. But what this intelligent sorting opportunity gives us is really a bit more of a tailor-made matching exercise for different recycling technologies. So two of the market demonstrations that we'll talk about in a minute are in Belgium for flexible PP packaging, and then in Germany for rigid PP food packaging. And why this is important is we need to sort of see how complementary all of the basic mechanical to advanced decontamination mechanical recycling to dissolution recycling, all the way through to actually which feedstock is okay for chemical recycling. We need to know which feedstocks are tailor-made for each of those recyclers for them to be able to make money and accelerate the process of getting food contact recycled plastic out of that process. Not only that, it needs to be stuff that will work with base film suppliers or rigid tray manufacturers, and then all the way back to printers, converters who make the finished packaging. So getting everyone involved in that whole value chain is even more important now that we've got the sorted material. We need to show that there's a loop all the way back to recycled plastic. And as Arla, Mondelēz, we're both in the food industry, we need food safe, food contact recycled plastic. So that's why we're really keen to get on with these two market demonstrations now, where we prove the economics, the value of that intelligently sorted material, and the and how much effectively money recyclers can make from getting the right feedstock.
Thank you. And Margherita, we've heard about the sort of big strategic picture, but maybe you could talk to us about what happens next on a more practical level with the ongoing HolyGrail project.
As Richard and Grane have mentioned, we want to go ahead indeed with the HolyGrail 2030, and the name is indicative of the fact that we want to continue looking for the HolyGrail technology for unlocking the circularity of packaging, plastic packaging, and 2030 hints at the fact that we have a target to reach according to the packaging and packaging waste regulation. So what comes next, actually, what is happening already now and has been happening for quite a while, we are looking into how to make this possible. And we have indeed these two programs, Belgium for flexible PP and Germany for rigid PP food packaging. And we are looking for pioneer companies like Arla and Mondelēz to help us make this a reality. So answer these value creation questions, proving the economics around this technology, and see how we can really drive intelligent sorting and making this a reality. And of course, the more companies are involved, the better, because then we can share learnings, we can get more, for example, more volume on the market, and so more input for the recycling processes that we are going to assess. And also it would entail also less cost for everyone indeed, because we can all share, the more the merrier. And of course, as Richard was also pointing out, it's important to have the full value chain involved, because we need every stakeholder to go with us and understand what's in it for them and how we can make it a success for everybody.
And building on that, Margherita, I understand that you've recently had the boost of Digimarc and Fosplus in Belgium signing an agreement that's really going to underpin the next trials.
That's right. That's a big starting milestone for this HolyGrail 2030. It's incredible to have such a PRO like the Belgian PRO Fosplus so much engaged, so ambitious to make this a reality and help us out in this on this journey. And indeed, we have this agreement. So there is going to be a centralized license managed by Fosplus. So this will make it easier also for brands and retailers to join and to start marking their packaging and just let the ball roll.
Great. Well, it's clear that realizing the opportunity of HolyGrail really depends on scale and the willingness and I guess the courage of stakeholders across the value chain and brand owners in particular. So as an unashamed supporter of HolyGrail, I would certainly recommend to all of our audience that you work on those internal silos and areas of friction within your organizations to consider how you can become part of this really transformative journey. Maybe I would leave Grane and Richard with a final word on this as people who have taken that journey how would you encourage your peers in other brands across food and non-food to think about the opportunity to join in the next stage of HolyGrail 2030?
I think that everyone should think of how would they get this 10% RPP into their food packaging in 5 years from now. There's no time for consideration or there's no time to waste in that question. I think it's the only way to secure that you are in the bus or on the boat, on the train. If you're just being passive, you will be left behind on this possibility to operate after 2030.
Thank you. And Richard, what's your message to your peers?
Yeah, thanks. And Grane has hit the nail on the head there. On the 1st of January 2030, like it or not, we're going to need hundreds of thousands of tons of polypropylene food contact packaging with recycled plastic available. And today, that we're not on track to achieve that. So we need more chemical recycling, and there's infrastructure building there. We need more dissolution recycling, and again, as part of the Belgium Flexibles 2030 market demonstration, one of the partners, or two of the partners there, are Dissolution Tech, Obotech, and Pure Cycle, because that technology is incredibly promising, but it's like anything, it's relatively new, and therefore it needs development. And then advanced mechanical and decontamination. There's lots of combinations and exciting tech there. CO2 clean is one that springs to mind. Things that actually we need, they're all complementary, but we just need enough. And we need EFSA leaning in and coaching and helping, saying this is what we require to make sure we're guaranteeing the food safety of this recycled plastic, these recyclates. Clearly, that's critical. That's our primary concern. We've got to make sure it's food safe, of course. But at the minute, we're nowhere near enough. So, Tim, I think you said at the beginning of the podcast, 5 years is tomorrow. Yeah, we need more people waking up, realizing that we all want to continue to use plastic packaging. We need to make it circular. We spoke at the beginning about circular recycled plastic at the end of life, but also circular renewable feedstocks to get ourselves off petrochemical virgin sources as well. All of these things need to come together. And there's a lot of hard work involved and a lot of development that needs to happen. And most of it's pre-competitive to some extent. We just need to all work together to make sure we've got the right collection, we've got the right sorting, we've got the right recycling technologies. And the more people who get involved, you can be part of the solution and not part of the plastic waste problem.
Thank you. And Margherita, finally, 2 questions, very practical ones. The big report, which is under preparation now, where will our audience be able to access that?
The report is available to members only, but we will issue a press release with the high-level results. And of course, if companies are interested to learn more, they can always reach out to us.
If you're kind enough to share the press release with us, Margherita, we'll make sure that the Packaging Europe audience can access that. And second question, what should a brand owner or a retailer who's not yet involved in HolyGrail do if they want to reach out to you?
They can just drop me an email. My email is margherita.trombetti@aim.be. And we can have a chat. I can also introduce them to my fantastic other colleagues at on the project management side, and we can just take it from there.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, Margherita, Grane, and Richard, for telling us about this journey. And I think there's still maybe the most exciting section of that journey is still ahead of us as we move from 25 to 30. That's all we have time for now. Just a final couple of announcements from us. We will be, I'm sure, talking about the HolyGrail project in particular and the broader strategic demands around circular economy and packaging sustainability at the Sustainable Packaging Summit, which takes place this year over 3 days, 10th to the 12th of November in Utrecht in the Netherlands. welcome to join us there. And finally, our sustainability awards for packaging sustainability innovations and initiatives. Once one of the early competitions to recognise HolyGrail as a really important part of the picture is currently open for submissions. Go to the Packaging Europe website if you would like to engage with that, and hurry because the deadline is coming fast. For now, thank you once again to Grane, Richard and Margherita, and we'll be back soon with another podcast. Goodbye.